Hey guys, welcome. Hat Tuesday number 27. Hat Tuesday number 27. Hopefully, you guys are having a pretty good start to your St. Patrick's Day, right? Happy St. Patrick's Day. We got my guy Robert. Robert, hello. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Hello, good morning.
All right, all right. I see you have the festive green fedora on. Um, I don't know if you got your celebration on started early. I haven't yet, but I'll start that soon enough.
It's full disclosure. The the Galts are longtime Northern Irishmen and very
Gotcha.
Protestant.
Yeah, yeah.
So we don't really celebrate St. Patrick's Day.
Understood. Understood. I mean, you can still probably have your drink of choice, and it doesn't have to be St. Patrick's Day to celebrate it. And at least that I my personal belief.
We went to our local craft brew place yesterday because today it'll be too crowded. So we went yesterday and
Yeah.
they were releasing their version of an Irish stout. So
Okay. Yeah.
we went and they had a special on black and tan half and halves. So
Yeah.
we celebrated it a day early and avoided
Yeah.
the rush.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, even if you're not Irish, you could still enjoy a fine drink because usually a lot of the bars will be very competitive on some pricing to try to get into foot traffic. So you can get some really good specials out there for your favorite drink of choice.
Yeah.
And we got Nathan in the chat. How you doing, Nathan? Hopefully all is well. Happy St. Patrick's Day. And I'm I'm pretty sure might be another Nate topic, but this is a good one because it really speaks to a lot of, hey, Ian, how are you? My faithful moderator, Ian, in the chat room. Personalization is one of those things where it depends on how you look at it. For a lot of the folks that are into hats, you don't need really to speak too much about how much you can personalize it, but maybe for the layperson, they might not realize how many things you can actually adjust to your liking on a fine hat, especially if you're getting it right off the bat from a custom hat maker such as Robert or Paul. And that's pretty much the topic for today. Nathan says, I don't need an excuse to throw some bourbon down. Yes, exactly. Like I said, it's one of those things where I'm like, if you want to do that at home or at your local watering hole, either way, it's a good time. Nathan says, I'll try to jump on in a bit. Awesome. And Nathan saying, I'm liking the beard look. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't know if it was on purpose, more probably out of laziness. But either way, as long as folks like it, it's cool with me, but I appreciate it. Yeah, exactly. Hats and beards topic. Hey, that might be, again, I don't have nearly the beard game as you do, Nathan, but I can definitely be down to talk about hats and beards.
Funny story. Don't know if it's true or not because it was on Facebook, but just the other day there was a story about a young 30-something hipster that was suing a magazine because they did a profile on sort of beards and hats and why all hipsters tend to look the same.
Yeah.
And so the guy sued because they were using his image without his permission.
Right.
Well, the irony was it wasn't him.
Wow. I mean, you can't really make that stuff up. It has to be right because that's exactly the whole point, right? It's like you do these things, and I know you made this point before, Robert, is that we sometimes in the effort to try to differentiate ourselves, we end up looking a lot more similar to begin with.
I don't know if and I think it sort of fits in with personalizing a hat, but it's kind of a I don't know, it can be a bit of a trap. And I remember there was a time we were in Utah, and we just stopped in Brigham City because it was the Peach Festival, and there was a parade about to happen. And it's like, so you can imagine Mormon Utah and small town, and it was kind of like being in a Norman Rockwell painting,
Right.
well scrubbed, neatly dressed people. And then as Elaine and I were walking down the street, walking towards us were two young women, all dressed in black,
Yeah.
black straight hair, like they were goth, right? It's like from two
Yeah.
blocks away. I poked Elaine and I said, "Oh my God, here comes two goths." And
Right.
I would bet that if I had stopped them and said, "Why are you dressed like that?" purely out of curiosity, they
Right.
would have said, "To look different."
Right.
And it's like, yes, to some degree, but in the other sense, I knew their tribe from blocks away.
Right. Right. Correct. And that's the thing. I mean, and for me, I'll make a confession. I still don't really know the difference between goth and emo. It's kind of a very similar look to my eye, but it could just be my untrained eye and the fact that I'm just older now, you know.
Yeah, I'm with yeah,
Yeah.
I fit
You
in.
know, I can see similarities, but at the same time, that even adds more fuel to the fire. You're like, I'm not goth, I'm emo. It's like, well, you look very
Yeah.
similar.
Excuse
know?
me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's but
Yeah.
whatever you like to do. Like I said, for me, you know, as somebody that enjoys wearing a fine hat and other hats, even if I don't personally like them, you know, I do at least admire some of the courage that it takes, right, to go out and kind of buck the trend, so to speak. And again, I say that, but at the same time, it doesn't. I can't. It's not like I'm trying to toot my own horn. I don't think I'm that courageous. You know, I just know that a lot of folks out there have communicated that, and that's why I think I like, especially the topic for today, because, well, sometimes, you know, you might be one of those lucky folks that gets to hang out with other hat people regularly, and maybe you want to add your own personal stamp on the way you wear your fedora. And you know, obviously, you guys already know. I'll put up this infographic. I shared this out with the group. And obviously, this is not going to be completely comprehensive, but it at least gives you an idea of some of the things that are available to you. You know, either if you ask it of your custom hat maker, or you decide to go ahead and take one of your current pieces and do some of your own work. But it really does kind of like make you think and say, wow, there's a lot of different options to play with in terms of what you can do to kind of, and if you don't stand out, at least to maybe put your mark, right? And, you know, and obviously this one is something that a lot of hat folks already know about, the shape and structure of how you wear your hat.
And I think supporting what you just said is like there's a lot more option today than even a decade ago.
Yeah.
And certainly way more than a generation ago, where
right,
pretty much the only thing that was accepted was the color and size of the feather that
right,
you put in the band. That was pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where obviously, like, it just reminds me of, you know, you mentioned color here, and that falls into that material and finish there at number 5 that's visible on your screen to the bottom right. It says felt type and finish. Obviously, in speaking with you gentlemen, with especially Robert and with yourself, Robert and Paul, and appreciating some of the materials besides just maybe the standard rabbit fur, about why that's better, let's say, than wool. And maybe you have beaver and nutria or naturia, depending on how you pronounce it, and what the benefits are of each of those materials. And then beyond that, the color, right? So we talked about, you know, in working with Paul, I had to make this Mets fedora in my blue and orange in the back. You can see it here. And that burnt orange brim trim and that ribbon was something that Paul mentioned he bought the last of it from his supplier. Like, it just wasn't a color that they really sell a whole lot of, especially in the UK, because, you know, the color selection tends to be a lot more conservative. And, you know, again, I think those right off the top of the bat, you know, you have your material and finish, and, you know, that includes color, and then your shape and structure. And that definitely are like some of the things that I thought immediately of. And then Nathan reminded me about the ribbon choices, right? We saw the fedora that he has with a double decker ribbon. I think things like that, and I happen to have seen that, you know, in going out with Paul and Ian, and seeing a double decker ribbon. I'm like, there's really no limit to what you can do to a lot of these hats to kind of make it your own. It gives you another excuse to buy a hat.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, like for me, it's like, oh yeah, I got to have a Mets fedora, you know, why not?
The other thing too that I see it's part of that is I don't get enough requests, but I have had a few for unusual, not necessarily. I mean, they are adornments, but they're also they have a utilitarian nature, and the two that spring to mind, and I think one begot the next one, but I made a woman a hat, a festival hat for her to wear to the Calgary Stampede.
Yeah.
But she had a very small vintage cigar cutter.
Yeah.
And she said, I want you to mount this on the hat.
Right.
But it has to be removable because I want to be able to use it.
Yeah.
So I love getting commissions like that because it's a challenge, you know. It's like, how am I going to do this? And so I came up with, luckily it was a silver plated cigar cutter and quite magnetic.
Yeah.
So I just incorporated small rare earth magnets, both into it and then in behind the sweatband.
Yeah.
And voila, she now at her reach, she has her favorite cigar cutter. And then right after that, I got a fellow who wanted a hiking hat, just, you know, kind of an outdoorsy fishing hiking hat. And he wanted to be able to mount a little budgie everyday carry.
Yeah.
In the hat band. And so he said, do you think he could do that? And I said, I know I can do that. I said, as long as you can ascertain, is the knife you're going to use magnetic?
Right.
Said, I'll check and get back to you. And yes, it was. And so I did much the same thing, except it was easier because he wanted a leather strap band.
Yeah.
So I just drilled not a through hole, but drilled a base the same size of the magnet and glued it in.
Yeah.
And then it incorporated another magnet in behind it, and voila, his little budgie knife was part of his hat. And the rare earth magnets have great hold, and he hasn't reported back that he's lost his knife, so I'm counting it as a success. You know, so awesome. There's that aspect of it too. It's
yeah, you got to love the engineering that goes into this. And we've talked a little bit, thanks to you, Robert, I came across Yabola hats. And Yabola hats has what's called the squish model that they innovated. It's a little bit of engineering. And it kind of, when I thought about it, I'm like, wow, that might have been inspired by the old collapsible toppers that you saw back in the day, right? When folks would put stuff, they go to the opera and collapse the hat and put it underneath the chair in front of them. And I'm like, I still love the concept because, well, again, we've talked about travel. I've done traveling lately and how to travel with your hats. Something like a squish model or some kind of collapsible hat might make it a little bit more friendly to travel with if you don't want to go with the standard crushable fedora. It's always nice to have options, and you got to love some of the engineering involved.
Yeah, and the fellow from Yobolo is like, he's a master. He's just I love seeing his Instagram pages because it's like, what's he up to now?
Yeah, correct.
But I often wonder, I don't know anything about the fellow, but does he have a thriving hat business? Because he never speaks about his clients. He just shows.
Yeah.
And I'm just wondering, like, is he making these hats for actual people? Right. And then my curiosity is engaged because it's like, well, who buys these hats?
Right.
You know, it's like, because I'm fascinated about that. It's like who is bold enough to buy one of these hats and, you know, and wear it to work. Like, you know, it's like, I totally admire that because he does phenomenal stuff.
Yeah, and we've seen some other things that, you know, obviously shapes, and we've seen we obviously had Brian Forbes on the channel before, and they've experimented with different, like a twist pattern. But yeah, the stuff that Yabola Hats does, and definitely check out Yabola Hats on Instagram. I actually invited the gentleman over on the channel. He basically, you know, thanked me, but said I really am not somebody that's great on camera. So you know, no worries. But it really is like when I follow that Instagram, every time I see it, I'm always amazed. And I think the same thing that you do, Robert, like who's buying it as well, because you know, you're wondering, like out there, it's like, yeah, you know, again, they're like the cream of the crop, right? In terms of courageousness, they're gonna go out there and do that. Every once in a while, I do see some folks that are not him that are wearing the hats, but I don't know if they're family members, you know, or just somebody that, or a model. So yeah.
I have a student. She's come into the shop and made a few hats for herself, and it's not one of Brian's models, but he might be the originator, and his brand is Child of the Jago, and it's Vivian Westwood's son.
Right.
So, but he does the same thing with the oversized, and so I asked the lady to bring, because she bought one of the Child of the Jago hats in, and because I wanted to see one in the flesh, and it's quite amazing, because it's about, I don't know, 4 or 5 sizes too large for her head.
Right.
Instead of a sweatband, there's a circular piece of foam that takes up the expanse of the head, and so the presentation is, as she puts it on and walks down the street, is that she has this enormous, you know, well, like one of Brian Forbes's hats, which is, I think they're a marvel, and yet I'd be hard pressed to wear one.
Right.
You know? It's like, but yet for the lady, she works in the film and TV industry, and so she's part of that, you know, the creative people, and it's like she puts it on her head, and it's like it absolutely works. You know, like, damn, that looks.
Yeah, you gotta love it, right? When the like the A-team, when the plan comes together, right? When you come up with an idea and it actually just works. And you know, obviously, we talked about, you know, the crown shaping, and there's also brim width, right? And brim shape. You know, the standard. Do you wear your brim up or your brim down? That front brim. And you know, you don't even have, and a lot of folks forget about the back brim, right? So if you look at a lot of the folks, I want to say in the Chicano subculture, right? A lot of the Mexican American folks out in California, they have a kind of a fine hat that both brims on the front and the back is typically flipped down.
It's all
yeah. So it goes all the way around. And again, I don't know the history behind that personal style choice, but I know that I have seen it consistently done, and it still looks cool, right? Those guys still look cool, and it's kind of one of those things when you're in your in group, you get to kind of get your nod of approval, right? These look similar to those in your in group, and then those folks outside are like, "Wow, I never even thought, even as a hat person, to do that." But it's nice that it can be pulled off.
In what you just said, kind of twigged something for me, and it was going back to what I talked about with using the 2 goth girls as the example.
Yeah,
and it's like, I think regardless of what I'm willing to admit, there still is this push for me to identify and then belong to my tribe. You know, regardless of what we choose, it's like,
right.
I think at the end of the day, we all have a tribe, and for me, it's like my wearing of hats, even though we're, you know, it is a very small cohort of people. They're my customers,
right?
You know, they're men over 50, generally not new to hats, but new to fine hats, and and it's sort of, they've reached an age where they've kind of grown into the idea of wearing a hat. And I mean, it's something that I got away from it in my 30s and into my 40s, because I felt like an imposter wearing a hat. I felt like a kid that had stolen his dad's hat.
Yeah.
But once I got into my late 40s, my hair turned white, and it was almost okay. I've reached the age where I've earned the right to wear a hat, and that's my tribe. You know, I'm of the tribe of the old white guys. That's
right. And it's one of those things where I'm like, you know, again, I think most of us don't get to hang out. Like I know Paul and Ian regularly get, you know, have gotten together at least a couple times, and I've gotten together with Steve Heck, who's been on this channel. But other than that, how many times do you get to go and meet another person, just like spend time with another hat person? And you know, I do have a couple friends that are hat people, right? They don't wear vintage hats per se, but they are hat people. And unless you get to hang out with, you know, with folks like that regularly, you know, you kind of do, we're natural comparers and contrasters, right? And you, again, even if it's not your style, you're like, okay, I dig that. I see why you like that, you know? You know, we've profiled a few folks, like, right, celebrities. You know, we've talked about Samuel L. Jackson. We've obviously profiled Johnny Depp last week. And at least, you know, folks like that are in the media, and obviously YouTube channels like this, where you get to see other folks wearing fine hats, will at least hopefully normalize a lot of the things and maybe spark some ideas, right? I mean, you know, you know, one thing we haven't talked about, but it's definitely something that's the reason why I wore this fedora, is hat pins, right? Especially if you noticed a lot of the Tyrolean hats. Hopefully I pronounced that correct. Right, you see the ones that they're kind of like, they're almost like how you see the old school VWs with all the stickers, right? It's like the hat version of that, where it's adorned in all hat pins. You know, it's like seeing somebody who has their whole body tattooed. And again, it's not my personal style. I do like hat pins. This hat actually has what's known as a paratrooper, you know, model, paratrooper pin. Because whoever owned it must have gone to jump school in the U.S. military. And but even if it's not for me, I still see those hats and I smile, because I'm like, wow, you know what I mean? It's like, that is also a one way to kind of like, I guess, adorn your hat, right? Have your pieces of flair if you're into the Office Space movie. And again, I can appreciate it even if it's not for me.
It is one area that. One thing that I do offer, and it's like a pin. It's a very subtle form of personalization, because generally it only has meaning to the wearer, because generally it's only visually, like only the wearer knows that it's there. You know, it's like, as you pass on the street, it could be a little Stetson or Borsalino branding pin, or you know, or a paratrooper, you know, it could be anything, and no one's going to notice it, but it's something that the wearer or the commissioner puts on their hat, and it's kind of fun, because I can't really see it here. I'll take it off, but I came across this line of their hand carved bone buttons.
Yeah.
And they're from Africa, and they come in probably 8 to 10 different animals.
Yeah.
And so it's more often on a lady's hat, but you know, rather than like on a Western style hat where they want a leather, just a leather band. I don't do, you know, fancy leather work, but I can offer them. It's like, well, do you have a favorite animal, or do you have an iconic animal? And I'll offer them, and so they'll. I have an owl that's quite popular, because it's like, oh yeah, owl denoting wisdom.
Yeah.
Or an elephant for for memory, things like that. My wife has a couple, or she has one like this with a little, I think it's probably a lizard, but I call it a crocodile because that's more, it's more sexy than just a lizard.
Yeah.
But it allows you to have something on your hat that in some small way represents you, but it's only going to have meaning to you.
Right.
The carved bone button, people have noticed it and commented on it, but they're a rarity. So it really just has meaning to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which doesn't diminish it, because it's like, in a sense, I'm wearing the hat for me.
Right. Correct.
Foremost, anyways.
We got Paul that joined us. Paul, I know you had a little trouble. Sorry, I couldn't help, but good.
Yeah, thank you, Morgan. She came to my rescue. He came to my rescue. The problem I have is that the messenger comes through on my personal Instagram on my phone, but I can't forward it to my other account on my computer. Hence, I need the code. And you've always, I've always got the code because you always put it in. So it's been great. Anyway, good to see everybody, and thanks for letting me in.
No problem. No problem. Thank you to you, Morgan, for assisting. We got some good tech savvy folks on the channel. I appreciate it. But Paul, we were talking about personalization, and I had shared this graphic out with the group earlier today. And we talked a lot about the basics, which obviously your crown shape and structure, right? We talked about obviously your material and finish, your colors. I mentioned about like the example of the Mets fedora that you had made for me, and kind of like the funny anecdote essentially of that burnt orange was something that the supplier, like, they had one bit of the material because they don't ever sell it, so why stock a whole lot of it? But things like that, and then it just, I guess, dawned on me about how many things you can actually switch and change. Obviously, we talked about the double decker, right? The ribbon, that one we saw out in. You're gonna have to help me where we were at when we saw the double decker ribbon, if you can remember.
Oh, we were at Farthing.
Yes, Thomas Farthing.
Thomas Farthing. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then we saw that on one of the fedoras you produced, probably my favorite fedora that you've produced for Nathan, with that double decker ribbon. And you wouldn't think, like I said, if I didn't see it with my own eyes and I saw already 2 examples, you would have been like, okay, that won't work. Actually 3 examples, right? Because we covered a movie that had a double decker. So I'm like, in every instance, it looked great.
No, it was good. It was good. I think when I came into the room there, I think Robert was about to show something. So I'm sorry I stepped in, but I think you were.
It's kind of along those lines, but on a, I've only ever done this. I have 3 hats where I've done it, and that's I'll personalize it with I found a guy online, actually in the Ukraine, that sells old currency really cheaply, and so I have a whole bunch of French francs. I have pre-revolution Russian rubles. I forget the name, but I have Ukraine currency, and so I'll fold that up and stick it in the ribbon. And so this one is a vintage, probably from maybe the late 40s, maybe the 50s, and it's I consider it's my John Paul Belmondo hat. So in the ribbon I have an old 10 franc note.
Yeah.
So just
we were talking about hat pins as well, and I was talking about the fedora I have on that has a and I've covered this on the channel before. It has jump wings, essentially a pin that kind of indicates or implies that the previous owner had gone to U.S. military jump school. So it added some of the provenance, right, to the story of the hat, and I do have this Carmen Sandiego fedora, right, from D-Bar J, and actually has one of his own personal pins on there. Hopefully that comes out okay with us.
Yeah, nice.
And I just thought that was pretty neat for like a custom hat maker to be able to have their own pin just in case, the customer either requests it or just says, hey, gussy it up a little bit. Maybe what can you do for me?
Well, just on the wings thing, I had a gentleman that got me to make him 2 or 3 hats. I guess it was probably about 9 months ago now, and he was in the paratroopers in the UK, and their beret was like a wine red color, and so he asked if I could actually make the linings in the hats in the wine red color, and then when he received the hats, he had the pins that they had as a regiment and put that through the ribbon. And I have to say, it looked really, really nice. And in fact, it got me thinking about, I want to try and get my little bird logo into a tiny enamel pin that I can send out with each hat, and then people can decide whether they want to put it in the hat, wear it, or just stick it in their drawer, But
I love that.
I just thought it would be quite a nice thing. And it might be that I tie it in with something else. I've been doing a few bits and pieces on the charity front. I just thought maybe I'd tie it into that. I don't know yet, but I've got to find a good maker of it in the UK. But it just struck me as being another nice thing to add. At the moment, I've been giving new customers to personalize the package, if you like, a brush, a proper horsehair hat brush, because a lot of people don't even think about hat brush. In fact, that's a whole nother topic, looking after hats, I guess. But but certainly, that seems to sort of customize the deal a bit. But I think otherwise, when you're doing a custom hat, I mean, I certainly have a checklist I go through, and there's about 25 points that I go through with a client, and they're always surprised, and it always surprises me that it takes about 25 to 30 minutes, if you can keep them on track, to go through all of those things, and I think that then builds up to obviously a custom hat, and we discuss all the things that, is there anything that is meaningful to you that you'd like to express in your hat, and so on. So that's sort of quite nice. And the other obvious one here in the UK is that we have an awful lot of the women that wear the fedoras tend to wear them and put very nice feathers in them. They tend to be country style hats, and your number 4 there, your accents and adornments, is perhaps one that is picked up quite widely in the UK.
Yeah, I love that idea, Paul, of including that hat pin, because that's something that's easy for the hat wearer to adjust right on their own. And obviously, and we talked about this before you joined, Paul, is like, for me, one of my first experiences on the Fedora Lounge and going through photos are the hats, the Tyrolean hats that you see that are kind of covered in hat pins, right? It's almost like and I mentioned this before, how people treat their VWs, when they'll cover them in stickers, right? Or their own body, right? If they're into tattooing their whole body. And again, it's not necessarily for me, meaning I wouldn't necessarily go those routes, but you can still appreciate the fact that folks are going to those lengths to, I guess, send a message, right? And or a variety of messages, and it also kind of says something about how comfortable they are, with going out there in public with their adornments.
The VW owners would cover the cars with stickers to hide the rust.
Hey, you see that? So it can be functional as well. You know what I mean? As somebody like myself, who owns an older car, I can certainly appreciate that.
Oh, my son's got one of those VW camper van things, and he's coming over the weekend to service it, and I dread it, but there you go.
yeah. And it's one of those things where, like I said, even if you are, and we talked about that before, the idea of standing out, sometimes you think you do it with the intention to stand out, but you end up looking just more like, right? You kind of find your tribe, right? Maybe for other folks that you see that have the Tyrolean hats and are adorned. However, the basis is, even if it's not for you, we can still dig it. And one day I hope to run it. I mean, it's actually St. Patrick's Day, so there's a good chance that I will run into a flat cap or some sort of Tyrolean hat or something that has a bunch of, because I do see a lot of flat caps as well. And we might see a good number of them, and some of them might have the pin decorations. I'll try to pick their brain.
Yeah. What do your Western hat wearers, your cowboy hat wearers, how do they customize their hats, because I've been making more. In fact, I've got another one here that I've just made, and I'm just waiting for the buckle to come from America. I've ordered 12 sets of buckles. You know, the sort of silvery buckles that have I don't quite know how they fit, but I've ordered them up anyway as a trial run and see.
Yeah.
They're fairly easy to assemble.
I think, oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's
with Western hats, something I dabble in. It's not my lane, but I do get commissions for them, and it's the adornment is relatively, in my experience, low key, and it's often, if they want something special, they'll go with leather, and so there you have the option of tooling the leather or adorning it with shells, rifle shells.
Oh yeah,
that sort of thing. So it's and then of course a single feather, and they'll like number number 4. They'll go with a bigger like a turkey feather or something that stands.
Yeah.
But,
got it. Yeah.
But for the most part, they don't go in, other than the festival hats, which I consider a wholly separate genre. They don't go in for a lot. Like, they're understated, which
I think
suits my sensibilities much better.
Yeah, I'm with you, Robert. I like a nice, clean cut hat. That I think this one I've got on today is probably the roughest hat I've got. It's and it's just because I'm trying to get the shape right.
Right.
But otherwise, I do like formal shapes that are as best as we can make them. And I think some of the materials we use, we're very fortunate to have some good materials at our disposal, I guess, to be able to do that with.
Yeah.
I think I don't know, Paul, if I suspect we share a similar clientele, and it's like my customers, and I guess it's no secret, they tend to be more conservative. They shy away from extravagancies, and I brought in some very expensive ribbon. It's vintage French grosgrain that I offer on the and it's striped, varying different colors, but it's striped, and it cost me $50 a yard.
Whoa!
Wow!
But it's beautiful. I mean, it's like it's just absolutely gorgeous, and I wish I had the clientele, and I wish I had the source that's all I could use. Like, and I charge. There's an upcharge, but if rather than buying a Panama with your classic navy or black ribbon, they'll go for something striped, and and pay the extra $50.
Yeah,
I think
that's their way of personalizing it, and yet no one really knows. Like, no one's going to be able to know that they spent an extra $50 on this ribbon,
right?
But to them, it's important.
Yeah, and I think it is, though, isn't it? I think we're many years behind America, I believe, over here in the UK. And I think I was playing around, and look, let's be fair. Most of the things I've learned, which I've got a long way to go, but I've learned from Robert's videos and YouTube. And what anybody says, I think Robert's videos are first class and been very, very useful. But then we suffer from being able to buy the right materials at reasonable prices here in the UK, and the availability is quite challenging. So I've had to bring them in from abroad and so on. And I think I've played around with, as you've seen, I've put materials on the base of the brim, and wider brims, brim trim, higher crowns, and so on. And what that's done is it actually has attracted the clientele. But in reality, when you get down and deep into what the client's going to use the hat for, where they're going to wear it, what they're going to wear it with, and their lifestyle and what sort of work or life they live, the actual hat you end up with is more or less a fairly mundane, straightforward design. However, colors of felts are beginning to be more important to people especially the sort of light browns and things. So whereas blues and blacks and greys were very traditional here in the UK, people are now progressing more to the beige and the light browns and the silver belly. Excuse me.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned right there, and we talked about right, number 6 here has edge and detail work. Obviously, you guys know I'm a big fan of brim trim. My fedora here came with some brim trim. It's a vintage Mallory, Fifth Avenue, and and obviously some of the stuff that I've gotten from Paul and some of the stuff here, you can see the idea of the brim trim is something that speaks to me. And that right there can also be customized in so many different ways, right? The width of the trim is something that you can play around with. We see some of that stuff with some of the hats from Kevin's line, right? Where some of the models, one of the biggest differentiator is they both have brim trim, but there are various, widths. And I think that's pretty cool to play around with.
Yeah, I think probably the widest I've done, Robert, is about a 25 mil brim trim. I don't know whether you've got anything wider yourself, but that's probably the widest I've done. And a lot of that is on things like Homburg. So I'm just making another Homburg today and just put that on there. It's quite challenging because of course you roll it over, so it's got a nice rolled edge.
Yeah. That's I'm just being North American. I mean, I was raised in, I guess like you, Paul, I was raised in inches and feet and yards. And then actually it was after I left school that they introduced the metric. But the company I worked for dealt with the United States. So we kept using inches. And now all of my ribbon is in the French standard in the lean. So I'm working in 3 different systems. So when you say, so I hesitated because when you said 25 mil, I had to first translate that into inches.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, okay, that's 12 lean. Yeah, I do.
Right.
So,
yeah.
It's just, it makes no sense, but that's what it is. And it's like, but it's like working with a customer. It's like sometimes with crown height, I'll quote that in inches, and then brim width, I'll quote it in centimeters.
Right.
So I probably confuse the crap out of my customers, particularly. Yeah. So, but the 12 lean is a standard when I'm doing a Homburg or a Derby, and then my standard on a fedora is half of that, the 6 lean, and then sometimes I'll do the 9, like with the whippet style because it has the wider brim binding on it. But it's usually one of those 3, 6, 9, or 12.
With my,
I own a couple of hats with 4 lean brim binding, but that's hard to work with because it's so narrow. Because once you have it around the brim, there's very little ribbon to work with, and it's hard. So I try to steer my customers away from that.
Understood. Well, we got Nathan in the chat. Nathan, welcome. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Hey, how's everybody doing today?
Good.
Doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I thought I'd jump on. I've got a few minutes. But yeah, I love the topic because this morning I wrote down like, okay, what are the areas that you could customize? And I don't know, I think there's like 8 or 9, and then each category, was really an umbrella to what you could do with it. But and I hope I brought a few examples, just what I've been doing recently. But
sure.
With that lock and code that I got from Paul, this was a refurbished one. But I wanted to refresh the hat liner. So but I wanted to keep a touch of the original. So what I did is I had I had a black satin liner. I don't know if you can see that real well.
Yeah.
But I had a black liner that I had taken out of one of my KTGs, so it was brand new. But I wanted to keep the Lock and Co. Part of the liner, so I took it to a seamstress, and basically it's a black but it kept the original top there with the logo and all that. And I kept the other liner just in case I wanted to restore it to original one day, but hopefully that doesn't offend anyone that's the Lock and Co connoisseurs, I guess. But also you can put a little ribbon in there. That's just kind of general. And then you guys talked about brim. This does have a raw edge on the brim. There's other brim bindings. This is my KTG Starlight.
Yeah.
And it's got a fairly thin brim binding, not like my PJM Open Road. It's got a little bit thicker binding there. But on this one, Kevin's always wearing that green hat. So I said, man, Kevin, you ought to go to a green liner. I thought that would have been kind of a nice, touch for his branding. But so I ordered that and I showed it to him, and
that's pretty sharp.
So that's for the green for him. Of course, it's got you guys were just talking about the is it pronounced line for the ribbon?
I think the correct is lean.
Lean. Okay, so that's the thinner one. Of course, the brim shade. This is a Cattleman crease. And then on my Open Road as well, this does have one of the double deckers. So this has a little bit of customization here with the double decker hat band. It's got the cording that Paul has trademarked now. And this particular one, I did put a little pin on there. That's actually just a lapel pin that I got when I bought a suit, and it actually says brotherly love. So I thought that was a neat little pin there to put. But so I was going to ask Paul or Robert, with the sweatbands, because I'm thinking about how more could I customize. So Paul and Robert, I know you guys probably put your signatures, your logos here on the sweatband. Now, do customers or have they ever said, hey, can you put my initials in there, or is that something you would kind of like burn in there, or could you do it like a stamp, like you do your signature? And also on the hat liner itself, have you done any like initials or any other kind of script on hat liners or sweatbands? And I'll let them answer that question.
All right.
You want to, Paul?
After you. Sorry, I obviously can't see. Yeah.
Nothing on the liner. Just my style sensibilities, I guess, are really lean to the simple, and so I've refrained from buying any embossing materials for my sweatbands. I order them; they're clean. There's no gold line. I don't put my logo on them. They're just clean. If I do have a set of alphabet punches and an arbor press, so if someone wants their initials on the liner, I can. I'm not on the liner, on the sweatband. I can do that. Two or if they want their middle initial as well, I will offer that. And I began it, and I've stopped doing it, but I bought a beautiful. It's brass, and it's my wolf paw logo.
Yeah.
And with the arbor press, I can imprint that on the sweatbands. Yeah. And I've stopped doing it because I really do prefer clean.
Yeah.
So the only thing that I do offer is the initials, because I figured I've got my logo. I spend an extra $12 to have my logo embroidered on the liner top.
Yeah.
And for me, that's kind of classic, and it's enough identification. I don't need it on the sweatband at all.
Right.
So those are my that's how I lean.
I mean, it's an interesting one. When I first started, as you know, I had that rather almost sinister logo, the looking of the dark head and so on. And my wife said to me, look, that's a bit sinister, Paul. That's perhaps not as good an idea as maybe you thought, first of all. And I thought, you know what, you might have a point. And she said, look, if you do go into ladies' hats, because she keeps pushing me that way, you know, the ladies would like something a bit different. So I went and I researched, you know, what is something, you know, an animal, bird, or whatever that would actually express what I wanted to express, and I came up with the multicolored bird, which I actually fall in love with. I really like now, and so we get that embroidered just locally here, and it's not too expensive to have that done. But that gives us one element of customization, and actually we can, as one or two of my customers know, we can actually customize their artwork or logo and put it in the liner using embroidery. Now there is an origination charge to do that, but that's passed on to the customer, and it's fairly affordable, really. It's a bit steep if you're just doing it for one hat, but if you're doing it for 2, 3, or several, then obviously it's a lot better.
What do you pay for that, Paul?
I think it does depend on the stitch count, but for my logo in there, it's about £4.50, which is, I guess, about $7 US.
Right.
No, but how much to originate the artwork?
Oh, to originate the artwork,
like to do the. It's like my guy. It cost me about $50 to $60 US.
Yeah, well, that's reasonable. I think it's about
program my logo.
Yeah, I think. Do you know? I honestly can't remember, Robert. I have done one recently, but I can't for the life of me remember. But I think we're on par probably with a similar costing base for that.
Yeah.
And as far as the embossing of the leather, I've got I went and invested in the heat press that is specially made for actually embossing the leather. And I've got my old logo made up in a brass die, and also my PJ Murphy signature. What I've got to do is invest in an alphabet set that actually enables me to put people's initials actually onto the leather. But it's funny, I've had people that have discussed it, because Herbert Johnson and Lock & Co, for instance, they offer that as a additional service. I think they charge £35 for it. It's quite, it's quite a reasonable price to actually charge if you can get away with that sort of level. But the actual set of dies are about £500 or £600 here in the UK. So I've sort of put it off because I've not had any real major call. And the other thing is that when I've discussed it with my customers and said to them, look, do you think there'll ever come a time when you might want to pass on your hat? And you're a bit of a collector, you might want to sell it and buy another one. They said, well, yeah, that is possible, Paul. I said, well, if it's got your initials in, how do you feel about that? And they've sort of edged backwards from that. But a lot of the second-hand hats that I refurbish, they do have initials in. So I think probably going back 50 years, it was very much the case. And it may well have been that the hats were so similar that when they went to a restaurant or somewhere and you deposited your hat,
correct,
how could you tell it from somebody else's? You'd be in a bit of a discussion with somebody, should I say, if we didn't have your initials in.
There used to be, I've had an opportunity to buy them, and I've refrained, but I have some custom hats with my initials punched with a series of, and you can actually buy a machine where you it's mechanical, but my initials are REG, so you put that in, and then with a lever put the sweatband in the machine, and then the lever comes down and punches the holes in the sweatband.
I've seen that before, like just so they're little holes punched, right? That spells out. I've seen that on vintage hats.
I don't know if you can buy a modern one, but the ones I've seen are vintage, and I got it done at the time. It seemed like a good idea, but I wouldn't do it again. I somewhat regret it, because it's like it's damaged the sweatband. If which I doubt I'll do, but if I should suggest, well, pass it on. It's like it has my initials in it. It would be much better if it was just plain.
Right.
Because it doesn't, it's like whenever I go out with my hat, we don't have hat checks anymore. It's like the hat generally either stays on my head or sits on the chair beside me. So it's like, I know it's my hat. I don't need my initials in it at all.
No.
Right.
No. I mean, I have had people who've contacted me, Luke, that have got and actually the most popular brand has been a Borsellino. So they've had a Borsellino hat that they wanted to jazz it up a bit, and they've sent it to me to put a different color ribbon on the outside or trim or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's been quite nice bit of work to do for them, and it's obviously added some new life to the hat.
Yeah.
You know, it was funny, Luke. You know, you and I went through Depp's hats, and boy, you talk about some customization. Geez, he's got the full spectrum. You know, he really gets into. I mean, that little brim. I mean, he just took just
the lip,
just the lip, and it was like folded up, and you really had to look closely to even see it.
Right.
But yeah, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, including the distressing. He apparently was a big fan of distressed hats, especially on more festival-looking hats. But he had regular fedoras that were distressed. And again, they still looked okay, right? It kind of fit his grunge aesthetic. But again, that's also can be functional, right? I mean, I got to imagine, right? We do know that there are hats that have vent holes. Borsalino is one brand that I know has had those vent holes in some of the models that they've produced. And obviously distressing is probably not done probably for ventilation, but it could be one of those side, those nice side benefits.
So let me ask Paul and Robert about vent holes. Have you done those before? And has anyone asked you to distress hat, you know, like the brim binding or some other kind of de-stressing to the hat?
Yeah.
I think I've done just 3 vented hats. I have a way of doing it. It's a bit time consuming, but it's not a complex step. It's a bit nerve wracking the first time you you punch a hole. So I don't like doing it, but if a customer wants it, I can do it. And then along with that, I've had probably another 3 or 4 customers request grommets,
right.
like like an Akubra.
Uh-huh.
That's a little bit more straightforward because you're only doing 2 or 3 holes, but it is nerve-wracking. Same with the venting, is that getting them absolutely centered on the right place on either side of the hat. And sorry, I forgot the second part of that was
distressing I can
honestly say I have never received a request to distress a hat. So luckily, I've never had to turn anybody down. I've made a few festival hats, but distressing wasn't part of that. It was just kind of fancying them up so they could wear it to Coachella and have a hat that they could flaunt. But so it's like yes and no.
Well, I went to the school of Robert, and I'm very much the same. I would turn down any distressing. I've only ever been asked once, and I said, "Look, I'll make you a hat, and you can distress it as much as you like when you've got it, but I'm not doing it." Okay? Why would you pay perfectly good money for the best felts? Well, in my opinion, some of the best felts in the world, and then distress it? I said, "Go figure." You know, it's not really my scene. And on the actual the holes, these are some that I've just been practicing, because I actually got asked last week for by a lady who I'm just making a hat for, and I went out and bought, I don't know whether you can see that, but it's straight off of eBay. It's just a hole punch and then a tool to be able to use these eyelets to be able to make the breathable eyelets, very similar to the ones on an Akubra, because I actually modeled it on an Akubra because that's what Lee and I were talking about. So now I've got to finish the conversation with her and specify the hat up, and then I'll go through the nerve-wracking situation of getting these in the right place.
Yeah. The venting I've done, I only offer the one style, but I have a template, and it's for essentially it's a star. And I know there's no end of patterns that you can offer, but my intention was to add to my portfolio and have different different styles available. But
Yeah.
given that in almost 8 years I've only received 3 commissions, it's obviously not a huge market. So I haven't bothered, and I offer the one pattern, and the holes are quite. I think it's the second smallest hole punch that I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Josh mentioned sweatband venting, which I've seen in certain vintage models I've come across. And I thought that's a pretty cool idea. He had shared examples with the group of Zito hats and some of the venting they have for the sweatband.
A number of sweatband suppliers offer them as vented, and you pay a small upcharge to get them vented.
Yeah.
You know,
I've never bothered offering them because there doesn't seem to be a demand, and if I added them to my inventory, I've just doubled my inventory costs. So it's like, you know what, I've never had to turn anybody away. So,
you know, I was thinking about just going back to brim binding. I don't know if Morgan's still in the chat, but I think a while back she might have had one that had like a double brim binding, where it just had like a 2-tone brim binding. Have you guys done any of those? And how is that done? You put one on just on top of the other one, or how do you do that?
Wow.
Yeah, I've never been asked for it. I do remember something like that with Morgan, and I have to say that I was in awe of it because I haven't done it. But in doing the double tier for yourself, Nathan, I can stitch that. So I mean, I could stitch, measure around the brim and then stitch one on top of the other, and then fold it and then stitch it in. But I've never really done that. Funny enough, I'm just trying to negotiate for some Petersham grosgrain at the moment that's multicolored and quite wide. So just to introduce some sort of color to it. But there's in the UK, there's not much call for. It's a chicken and egg. You either have to make the hats that look really jazzy and colorful and hope that people buy them, because there's very few people that have got the vision and the desire to actually make the statement by wearing something as jazzy. And if they want a jazzy hat, they tend to think it's a £25 throwaway hat. It's not really an expensive hat that deserves the right materials.
It's interesting, Paul. There's an ex-Canadian hatter that he moved with his wife to Barcelona, and he's just opened a website, and he's attempting to make a go of it from Spain as a custom hat maker. But the step that he's taken is he's been busy the last couple of months making hats, and so sometime this month he's going to launch a line of pret-a-porter hats in, I don't know, half a dozen styles, and it's like, I admire him but I would not want to go down that road, because then you're stuck with inventory that you have to sell in colors that maybe nobody wants this season. It's like, it's
well, I guess that's
generic hats, because the more personalized you make them, the smaller your market becomes.
I think the challenge I recognized in the UK was that, I mean, believe it or not, we've got somewhere between 12 and 20 hatters in the UK. That's all we've got. Wow. That includes Lark & Co. and Herbert Johnson and Sierra and South, Paul Ventress, Marcel Rodriguez, myself, and there's a couple of others that I'm not too sure of. But and I figured that I'm going to have to not just get the horse to water, but make it drink. And by making it drink, I mean making up a lot of hats and actually getting people to think about, oh, that might look good on me. Oh, I like that color, but not that style. And so I invested heavily. I've probably got 100, probably just short of 100 hats that I've made up now out of brand new felts. I guess probably 60 of them are my size, so that's all right. And you're all right there, Nathan, because when I get a sale going, you'll be there. Nathan's the same size as me. So anyway, so I made
that's
that investment.
Paul. That's such a shame that you had to make them that size.
Are you a 58?
Oh no,
I'm
59.5, 60. Yeah.
Yeah. Paul's figured out. Yeah, 59 and a half.
I've got it
60
in my experience, probably 80% of the hats I sell, and of course we're talking North American metric. It's probably 80 to 85% are 58s and 59s.
Yeah.
And then it disperses out to the edges after that. But it's like if I were to do this again, I might end up just buying 57, 58, 59, and 60 blocks and just and be done with it, because that's where the market is.
Yeah, although I'll tell you one thing that my wife and I have been discussing today, actually making excuse me, fedoras and trilbies for children, albeit you know, they'd need to be fairly wealthy parents to buy, you know, rabbit or beaver felt hats, but they would no doubt go down to relatively small sizes. So that's something we're sort of thinking. You know, do we put something on there as a service to offer?
Yeah,
mainly for weddings and things.
In private school colors.
In private school color, yeah. Well, we got one of the best private schools in the world just on our doorstep at Winchester, of course. So I'll go and tout my services up there then.
Yeah. Hey, I love that. That's good. Opens up a new market, right?
I guess I could take my equipment along there and make one on site, you know?
Yeah. I say, hey, you know, you give, you know, yeah. I just, the way the kids think, they're like, well, Timmy has one. Why can't I?
Yeah.
I love it. Well, gentlemen, I want to make sure I open it up in case there's anything we wanted to share that we haven't covered yet. We're a little bit over an hour.
One last thing I want to point out is that on Etsy, there's something I didn't know, but I have a stock of feathers. I've got a couple of hundred. I have a box of feathers, and I offer it to my customers at the end. It's like, you know, and it's kind of part of the end process. It's like, would you like a feather? And then I'll pick out maybe half a dozen different feathers, and you know, and they get to, and that's their small way of personalizing it, because they've chosen the feather, and oftentimes they'll just say, nah, don't want one.
Right.
But it opened up. I never realized that there was so much selection in terms of feathers before. And one of the things on Etsy, and it's probably the ones that I give away the most, are in this day and age, they're ethically sourced, sustainable feathers.
Yeah.
And it's like, so they pick them up at aviaries, and it's like, so no birds were harmed in the gathering of these feathers.
Yeah.
And they're all wonderful because the colors are natural.
Yeah.
Versus the classic ones, which are all brightly dyed, you know, the fuchsias, and you know, but up until I started looking into it, it's like I never knew that the world of feathers could be so complicated. Do you find people wanting feathers, Paul?
No, I keep a couple of small feathers with like metal holders, you know, the mounts, I guess we call them here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of those in stock, but no, it's not been something that that's been asked of me, and I don't know whether because they're, you know, fairly formal hats that I do. Although in saying that, you know, my festival hats and things, people haven't even asked for feathers on that. So it may be just part of the fact that they want to customize them themselves. As I mean, more and more people are asking me just to put the ribbon band on rather than stitched into the felt, so that they can take it off and actually switch it out for something less formal, shall I say. So I quite like that. I think that's great, because I'm all for people expressing their own personality through their hats. So I think that's what we're seeing here. But
so I've got that feather here. I've got from, I think KTG sent me a bunch of feathers, but not, I mean, just as a consumer and a hat wearer, I don't wear a lot of feathers. I remember maybe 2 or 3 occasions where I had probably a suit or something on, and I had a hat, and I thought, man, I could have used that particular feather just to kind of tie in the outfit a little bit better. But in general, it's just not something I normally use.
Yeah.
I think what was also interesting when I was looking at the subject of customization was, if you look at celebrities, there are an awful lot of huge celebrities that actually wear hats, and they've either exaggerated the size, like Boy George, for instance. He wears hats that are made of the chard of Jago, and now that's a fashion brand in London, which is mainly wool hats, so they're not particularly good quality, but they're about £300, £400 each. But you look at Elton John; he's worn hats over the years. You look at Beyonce. You look at and it's funny because and Michael Jackson and so on. And then you wonder why some of the up and coming stars don't latch on to this, because clearly somebody has somewhere and said, you know what, you're going to be remembered if you get a hat that's actually personalized and stylized for your way of looking and your lifestyle and your music style, most importantly, then the whole look is going to be changed because of that hat. And that's actually going to be what reminds your listeners, of yourself and your music, because it's the music, but it's also their personality, their lifestyle, their image, all of that, all mashed up into one is what the consumer's buying. So that's an interesting subject. Maybe another chat.
Now I think you're dead on. It's branding. It's just branding, like who you are as a brand. I mean, whenever I see Robert, he's got his hat and his beard. I forgot what do you call it, Robert? What is it?
It's kind of an out of control soul patch.
A soul patch, that's what it is. So like that's a brand, and I agree wholeheartedly with you, Paul. I think there are a lot of celebrities that do that, and I think more, of course, will come on board with that. But it's all about branding, and they get to the point where sometimes it's in their contracts. You can't go out without this or that particular look, or like Tom Selleck. Tom Selleck had a contract, like he couldn't cut his mustache. So like I think it's the same thing with the hat wear, for sure. Yeah.
Funny story about my soul patch. I had a woman. It was the woman that bought the hat for the Calgary Stampede, and the second time she came in to pick up her hat, I have a leather apron that I wear in the shop, and she came in and she says, "I just love coming here," she says, "because you remind me so much of Geppetto from Pinocchio fame." And so I looked at her and said, "Well, that's not the look I was after." I've kind of trimmed it a bit, but I don't.
I always get jazz musician. Are you a musician of some sort? I guess the stingy brim kind of gives folks the vibe of a musician, and I'm like, trust me, you don't want to hear me play music.
Hey guys, great conversation today. I'm gonna head out, but no, I love all the feedback and all the different ways to we probably just scratched the surface. I mean, within an hour to how many different ways you can customize a hat. So thank you guys. Thank you, Robert, Paul,
you got it,
Luke, the folks in the chat. Appreciate everybody's support. So
no problem.
As always,
stay hatty, my friend. All right. See you, Nathan.
There was just one more that I wanted to share. I watched the Blue Jays play the Mets the other day.
Oh yeah.
And it's like I think the Mets could do some damage this year if their pitching holds up.
I hope so. I mean, it's good. That you hit the nail right on the head. If the pitching holds up, Yeah, we certainly got some bats, and we got some threats, but like I said, pitching will tell the story. Paul, you were saying?
There was one thing that I wanted to just add, and it's a shame that Nathan won't be here, but Nick Fouquet has been starting to do some embroidery on the actual felts, on the actual crown of the hat. So he might well, hi Ian, he might well do some flower designs and other things. Now, I'm going back to the 70s. I mean, I was doing that on jeans in the 70s, and I remember that drove a few people mad, including my wife. But but I think it's another way. And to be fair to him, he's actually doing it before he sells the hat, so it's part of his design thing. But again, I've not really seen that in too many other hatters. Although I've not consciously gone out to look for it.
There is there's a fellow in Australia, Bam Bam Hats.
Bam Bam.
Okay.
And it's not exhaustive, but I think he is, if not the originator of it, he's popularized it.
Yeah.
And he does, and it's been really interesting watching his evolution, because he just had this idea. He had no particular sewing skills, but he was just kind of intent on doing it. And over the last few years, it's been amazing to see the progression of his work, and he's doing some really quite beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing for him is it's all commissioned. So people will send him a photograph of their dog, of their beloved dog that perhaps has passed away.
Yeah.
And he will embroider a likeness of the dog on the side of the hat.
Well, that's a skill. Yeah.
It's quite, I mean, he's just, I don't know. To me, he's like a typical Aussie dude, he's not.
Yeah.
And it just grew out of his intention to learn how to do this. And now I start to see it on Instagram and Facebook. I see it more and more. But 2 years ago, he was the only guy that I knew that was doing it.
Yeah.
And so now I'm thinking, as you talk about Nick Fouquet, it's like, okay, it has now entered the mainstream. And at this point on, we're going to see a proliferation of, like, it's going to become passe, and those people that start to do it now will be behind the curve. And by the time they get good at it, the fashion will move on. They'll be moved on. Yeah. The other thing that I've always thought, and this is an old time art, and that is pyrography on hats.
Yeah. I've seen a bit of that. Yeah.
Rand hats out of Billings, Montana.
Yeah.
They have a pyrographer that does contract work. They're not on staff. But it's like, and they do incredible work. Like, it's beautiful. And it's just them and a wood burning pencil. And it's like, okay, that's an art form. I've actually thought of, if I ever found myself in Billings, I would be, I'd give a real hard thought about going in and buying a hat and commissioning this pyrographer, because it's like, it's incredible, the detail that they get.
That's amazing.
I think, nothing really beats a really good shape of a hat, and, customizing it for a customer who wants to make a statement and still keep the lines clean, but something that's slightly different, maybe a little bit higher at the front, a little bit lower at the back, so you've got a big raking effect, or it's particularly low. I had one that wanted a 9 centimeter crown all the way down and a really wide brim, and so that's another way of personalization, I guess.
Yeah. All right, well, gentlemen, I'll close us out here. I appreciate you guys joining us. So thank you to Robert, to Paul, to Nathan for joining us on screen. Thank you to Josh, to Morgan, and to Ian for joining us in the chat room. Wow, again, hopefully this has been a useful discussion in terms of like all the various ways. And I know we couldn't cover everything. I think it'd be impossible, but definitely support all these fine folks in the Good Looks Network. Support all your hat folks outside the Good Looks Network. And you know what I want to say, even if you don't support, right? Even if you choose not to support any of these fine folks, the one thing you got to do, or we'll get the St. Patty's Day leprechaun after you, not to do anything else. Just make sure he keeps his pot of gold okay, and make sure you hit the subscribe button. But the one thing you got to do regardless. Go ahead, Robert.
Historically, leprechauns weren't the benign little tricksters that they are today. It's like back in the 17th and 18th century, they were mean little buggers. Like they were the devil.
So I guess you better support then. I think it's a good idea. I think Robert gave you fair warning.
You don't want to get on the bad side of a leprechaun.
Yeah, just go ahead and support us, please. But regardless, Have a happy St. Patrick's Day and stay hatting, my friend. Have a great day. Ciao, everybody.
Thank you, Luke.
Adios.
Thank you.